At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter. As Chief Appreciation Strategist at Strategy, Lisa Ryan brings more than 20 years of sales, marketing, and training experience to her clients and audiences. She works with organizations to help them keep their top talent and best customers from becoming someone else's. She achieves this by teaching how to build stronger, more profitable, lasting relationships between a company, its employees, and customers by creating a stronger emotional connection to the organization. An added benefit is that her specific steps and actionable ideas are transferable to personal relationships and situations as well. She is a best-selling author of 7 books, as well as a monthly contributor to 4 online publications. Lisa provides content for a number of association newsletters, and the Wall Street Journal, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox have all quoted her. Lisa serves on the board of the Ohio chapter of the National Speakers Association and is past president of her Toastmasters International Club. She holds a bachelor's degree and an MBA in marketing from Cleveland State University. At this time, I'll turn it over to our distinguished presenter. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. All righty. So in our time together, we're going to talk about how you sweat the small stuff, how those details that we pay attention to in the workplace can keep your top talent from becoming someone else's. Because here's the scoop. When you look at the fact that in manufacturing and the trades, for every 4 people that retire, there's only 1 interested qualified worker. So 4 people leave, 1 comes back in. I just spoke in Vegas last week, and it kind of reminds me of that, kind of like putting $1 into a slot machine and getting a quarter back. Of course, anytime you get money back in Vegas, that's a bonus, but that's beside the point. We're still seeing a potential severe shortage. So you work so hard to bring talent in. You look for unique ways to find them in a shrinking market, to recruit them, to onboard them. But unless you create the culture that they want to be in, they can take those skills and walk down the street. So turnover is extremely expensive. Now, if you're thinking, well, Lisa, how can we have this shortage of talent when there's millions of jobless millennials that are out there just waiting for us to find them? Millennials right now are seeing a jobless rate of twice the national average. National average right now is at about 4%. Millennials are seeing it at a little over 8%. But here's the problem. For the past 2 generations, the people have been steering their children away from manufacturing, away from the trades, so that they can get that 4-year degree. Unfortunately, what happens, or what's been happening, is these millennials have come out into the workplace and they can't find a job, so they're living in their parents' basement and trying to find something, versus if they had gone to a trade or technical school where they'd come out with no debt, little debt, able to find a job and make a really decent living. When it comes to manufacturing and the trades, we need to change the conversation, and that starts at a much younger age than it used to. We need to show that there are different options than just having that 4-year degree. So what does all this mean to you? Your clients are in manufacturing. You're building systems for all different types of companies. So even though automation is replacing some of the workers, we need people to run that equipment. We need to have staff fully there so that we can produce the products. We can offer the services that we need. There will always, always, always be that need for human connection. So in our time together, here's some of the things that you're going to get. First of all, how to sincerely acknowledge your employees. Now, if you're on the phone, you're thinking, Lisa, why should I be thanking my employees? I mean, isn't that what a paycheck's for? It is if you want your employees to do exactly the amount of work that you're paying them to do. But if you want them to give you their blood, their sweat, their tears, then that emotional connection, we're going to talk about how important it is to acknowledge the good work that your employees are doing. We're going to talk about ways to build your company's reputation as a great place to work. how you can address and find those hidden killers of productivity and profits, and really get yourself off that hamster wheel of continuous hiring. Why not just hire more slowly, finding the right people for your company and finding ways to keep them? And then we'll also spend a little bit of time with talking about the different generations in the workplace, because it really is significant. When it comes to the year that we were born in, there's significant differences as far as how employees of different generations need to be acknowledged. Now, this is going to be a conversation. I know it's kind of one-sided because I'm on a webinar here, but if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the chat window. You don't have to wait till the end. If you are doing something that you want to share a success that you've had or something that you're doing that is working, I'm sure the other people on this webinar would love to hear from you. I know that we'll have, Holly will be monitoring that. I will also be paying attention to it. So, feel free to put something in the chat. You are not interrupting me, just so you know. So here's the little disclaimer. Let's just get this right out of the way. When we're talking about engaged employees, this is not pie in the sky. This is not something that's fluffy and soft. When you have engaged employees, you are getting hard results. People who are engaged, they're showing they have 50% fewer accidents. And of course, when we're dealing with automation, when we're dealing with manufacturing, when we're dealing with heavy equipment and machinery, fewer accidents is a very good thing. Fewer quality defects, 41%. Because employees are engaged, they care about the work that they do, and they're committed to doing the best job possible. You have 30% lower health care costs. Because employees are feeling better, they have less stress, they're feeling more acknowledged and connected to the work they do instead of bummed out, burned out, and stressed out. They are going to the doctor fewer times. You have 22% more productivity. And these are not numbers that I'm just pulling out of the air. This is a small percentage of the numbers that verify everything that we're talking about. And for corporations that have a higher level of engagement, you have 147% higher corporate earnings. So let's go back again. We talk about that stigma that manufacturing has and the trades have going into those more blue-collar types of positions. We need to start changing that conversation, because it's not the same as the dirty, filthy environments that you used to have in the 70s and that constant fear of being laid off, that the parents of your millennials, of your potential candidates, are still thinking about. You think about, a kid that has his 4-year degree, and that's where they want their kids to go because they want to know that their kids are college material versus going to a trade or technical school. Now, I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio, and we have some great manufacturing networking groups here that are starting to change the conversation, and that's what we need to do. Another thing to take a look at is things like Manufacturing Day. If you're not familiar with Manufacturing Day, that is the first Friday in October. And there's a whole marketing campaign that you can adapt at your facility, because what they're seeing is that Generation Z, which is the new generation coming into the workplace now, they are actually deciding on careers much earlier than their millennial and Gen X counterparts. So you no longer have the luxury of being able to wait till somebody even graduates high school or decides to go to technical school. We're reaching kids at a much younger age now to expose them. Funny story, I spoke last week for the Surface event, so a bunch of flooring contractors. And one of the gentlemen there shared the story that they had, during their company picnic, they had a contest. It was a stone building contest that they had for the employees' kids. So what a brilliant way for this company to introduce his employees' offsprings to what they do for a living, what mom and dad do for a living at a very young age. So when you start to think about where that future of employees are coming from, what can you start doing right now to expose your industry to a much younger generation? Because manufacturing is going through a renaissance in this country. And no, not a renaissance where you're going to be driving or riding around on horses and doing jousting. We're looking at more companies keeping their business, keeping their products right here in the United States, and we need to be prepared for that. So when we look at what employees are looking for, and again, depending on the article and the research that you read, there's lots and lots of things, but it really boils down to these 5 things: company culture and mission. And the mission of your organization is more than that platitude that you have on the wall in your offices talking about your values and mission. If I go to your company and ask your employees to tell me what your company mission is, would they be able to do it? Or if I told your employees what your mission is, would they say, yeah, that's exactly us, or would they laugh? We need to create a culture that has that buy-in where we are asking employees, how do you see our culture? Scary question. What can we do to improve our culture? Scary question. But it's the answers to those questions that help us. You need approachable leadership. Back in the day of the traditionalists who were born before 1945 and the boomers, it was 1946 to 1964, you had a hierarchy. There was a level of hoops that you had to jump through in an organization to talk to the people at the top, and you didn't want to go over anyone's head. We have generations in the workplace now that are used to seeing their parents as peers, and they are used to and want to have their bosses and company leadership on that same level, to be approachable, to be able to share ideas with them. They want the opportunity to grow. So, and it doesn't always have to be an upward move, in the company. Because a lot of you have smaller organizations, flatter organizations, and there's not somewhere to climb the proverbial corporate ladder. But if you can look for ways to change the responsibilities, some of the research I came across when it was talking about millennials is about every 18 months to change their job responsibilities because they want to grow with an organization, and if they're not growing with you, they're going to grow with somebody else. Flexibility for work and life. We no longer have work-life balance. We have work-life integration. So how do you, as an organization, look for ways to bring that family element, to create those relationships, but also to come to an understanding when life happens and people need time off? Or how flexible can you be with your with the hours worked? Now, I know in a production line you need to have people there, unless, of course, it's automated, to run the equipment. There are lots of jobs that can't be done from home. You cannot telecommute retail customer service, okay? But we have to look at ways to give some time back. And sometimes it's a little bit of asking employees, you want them to come to work at 7 o'clock, but maybe you give them the option, hey, you can come in at 6:30, you can come in at 7, you can come at 7:30. Those employees may still choose to come in at 7, but because they were given the choice, you're more likely to be able to deal with tardiness and absentee issues for people who are having traffic issues, kid issues, babysitting issues, whatever it is. We just need to find more ways to have flexibility. And, of course, recognition. People want to be acknowledged and valued for the good work that they do in the organization. So you might be wondering, okay, well, who is this Lisa Ryan and why does she talk about employee engagement by building on gratitude strategies or gratities? I actually spent 13 years in industrial sales, including 7 years in the welding industry, and yes, I do weld. But everything really changed in 2009 when I did a fire walk. And that is actually what a fire walk looks like, is you're walking across burning embers. No, I didn't get burned. No, I have no idea why I didn't get burned. But what happened as a result of that, I went with my friends, and as we were driving home and we were all jacked up, you might actually say we were fired up after the experience, we decided to capitalize on that. So we opened up a Facebook thread, and every day we shared people that we met, experiences that we had, things that we learned, and one of my friends said, why don't we write down 3 things that we're grateful for? So we did that every day and held each other accountable. And it was that one practice that changed everything. So when we look at employee engagement, we can either look at it as one more thing that we have to do to our employees or for our employees, but when we can start with our own practice of gratitude, which I'm going to spend a couple minutes on, it starts to help you personally so that when you experience the benefits of looking for the good in yourself and your life first, it's easier to take it into the workplace. So one of the very first studies that I read from gratitude about the power of gratitude, and I've read literally thousands of white papers and articles and books and conducted my own research, but one of the first studies, Dr. Robert Emmons took a random group of people, divided them into 3. The first group, he had them write down the things that they were grateful for. The second group, all the troubles, hassles, things that bugged them. Third group simply recorded the day's events. They were the control group. So starting at the top there with the smiley face, he found that the gratitude group was 25% happier. You might be saying, well, Lisa, how do you know they were 25% happier? Because what happened is they did a journaling process for about 10 weeks before the study so that he could monitor like stress levels in relationships and headaches and all of that, so he can separate the chronically happy people from, let's just call them the chronically crabby people, and saw the 25% increase. They complained less often. The gratitude group exercised on average an hour and a half more per week than the other 2 groups. They were sick less often. So, and research shows that people that have a regular practice of gratitude are awake less time before they fall asleep, they sleep more soundly, and they awaken more refreshed. So obviously we know that the more sleep we get, the better it is for us. They're more happy, joyful, and enthusiastic. And then Dr. Emmons interviewed the people associated with the gratitude group to see if they noticed any difference, and they did. They actually found that they were more emotionally available. They were nicer to be around. And it really comes down to 2 words, not only for ourselves, but for the people in our lives. And these are 2 words that Mother Teresa once said, we're more starved for appreciation than we are for bread. So when it comes to those 2 magical words, of course, they are thank you. Simply looking at reasons to find people and acknowledge the good they do. Now, if you walk out of this webinar and you say, oh, okay, that Lisa Ryan woman told me I need to thank 5 people today. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're right. It's not going to work. They're going to see right through it. What we want to do is sincerely add detail to it. What are you thanking them for? Now, here's one thing, and this will change your life right now. When it comes to thank you, think about the responses that we get. Okay? No problem, no worries, it was nothing. The only acceptable response to the words thank you are you're welcome. Now you might be saying, Lisa, it's not a big deal. It's not a big issue. And here's the challenge. Your brain doesn't process small words. What does that mean? That means that if you say no problem, my brain is saying problem. There could be a problem. What do you mean there's a problem? When you say no worries, my brain is saying worries. What should I be worried about? When you say you're welcome, when you say my pleasure, it's a different brain level. Now, some people say, well, Lisa, and I don't know if you all have Chick-fil-A's in the area, but people say every time I say my pleasure, it feels like I'm at Chick-fil-A, which, by the way, is a registered trademark of Chick-fil-A. How do I know that? Well, I tweeted about it, and the cow tweeted me back. As you can see from the picture, the cow and I are very close now. Anyway, when it comes to thank you, the only acceptable response is you're welcome. we are completing the cycle of appreciation. Takes no additional time, takes no additional money, but you're connecting with people on that human connection level. So when it comes to the power of gratitude, it's not just a good idea, it is essential to life. So we talked about you, now let's take it into the workplace. Because when we're talking about employee satisfaction versus employee engagement, satisfaction is functional. You know, the employee, his job's fine, boss is fine, commute's fine. But when you have engagement, that is an emotional connection. That's the person that can't shut up about what they do. The time flies by, that they are committed and love what they do. That's what we're looking for when it comes to that level of connection in the workplace. Because when we look at the reasons people leave, inadequate communication, well, I told them twice. Yeah, but maybe they didn't hear you the first time, and the second time they didn't think it was that important. Or you sent it to them in an email, and they like text. Or you called them on the phone and left in a voicemail, and they never checked it. We over-communicate, making sure that the message gets heard. Again, that lack of growth and advancement, we looked at that as far as the top 5. People want to grow in an organization. They feel devalued or unrecognized. We'll take a look at the statistics of that coming up and how you can get better in your acknowledgement. Again, limited work-life balances, giving the opportunity for some type of flexibility, and also incorporating the family into your workplaces. Because when your employee's spouse or their kids or their significant others love the fact that they work for you, it makes it much easier for them to quit. Too little coaching and feedback. We don't take time to mentor our employees, and a lack of empowerment. When you empower your employees to do the good work that they do, and you have to be okay with failure from time to time. But if you punish failure for an employee's sincere effort, they'll never try again, and you won't grow as a result of that. So when we look at some of the engagement statistics, you have your fully engaged employees, that's about 30% of your employees. And when Halogen Software put out this infographic, when you're talking about a fully engaged employee, they're consistently using their talents. They have a good attitude, good energy. You know your rock stars. These are the people that are bringing more value to your organization than you are paying them for. Then you have about 50% of your employees who are moderately engaged. These people are basically doing exactly the amount of work that they are being paid to do, and you're probably paying them just enough so that they don't quit. But then we have that bottom 20%, the horrible, toxic people that suck the life out of the room who work for you. These people, they don't know what's expected for them. They don't have any ties to the organization or to their coworkers. Looking back to fully engaged employees, those people have a best friend at work, according to Gallup. Not a good friend, not somebody they tolerate. They have a best friend at work. But those horrible, toxic employees who work for you, they are not only terrible to be around, but they're expensive. You can see by the red circle there, they are costing your company $3,400 for every $10,000 you're paying them in salary. So what do we do to get over that? Well, we're going to go through the thanks process that will expand a lot more in our time together in Asheville, but this will give you a good start because now you have a couple months to walk out of here with some ideas that you can make a commitment to and immediately start to use. And my cautionary tale of that is stop chasing BSOs. And if you're saying, Lisa, what is a BSO? A bright, shiny object. There are way too many times that you listen to a webinar, you go to a program, you walk out with 22 different things that you want to get accomplished, and none of them happen. When you are looking to change your culture, this is a long-term event. Your culture did not happen overnight. It's not going to change overnight. So the T in thanks is to set that foundation of trust, of doing what you say you're going to do and to stop chasing those squirrels. Okay? That consistency counts. Because when you go to, again, you go to this program or you go to a conference, face it, your employees hate when you go to conferences. Because, again, they know you're going to come up with 22 different things that you want them to do, you want it done now, and then in about 2 weeks, things are going to go back to normal, and it's just another flavor of the month. We need to set that groundwork, that transparency, that trust, and that may even be starting with an apology approach of saying, listen, guys, listen, gals, I have not been telling you how much I appreciate you lately, and I am making a concerted effort to change. Or I learned about this new practice at a conference I went to. I'd really like to implement it in the company. There's just this one thing. I'd love to get your feedback on it. And whatever feedback you get, we put on the poker face and say thank you for sharing. Because if your employees are giving you feedback and you're saying, oh, no, you don't understand, they will never give you feedback again. You must be okay when you ask a question with whatever answer you get and come in with that thank you for sharing. So think about it from a recruiting process of starting to modernize your brand. Again, we're talking about automation, we're talking about technology, but when people go online to find your organizations, what are they seeing? Are they seeing something different than what you have in your plant? Here's an interesting statistic about YouTube. We watch, there is uploaded to YouTube every single minute 500 hours of content. There are 1 billion hours worth of content being uploaded to YouTube every single day. So your employees or potential employees are looking for you. And what are they seeing? Are they seeing a bunch of outdated corporate mumbo-jumbo videos? Are they seeing something real? And when we talk about videos, it's not like back in the day. I remember when my husband used to lug around that thing all the time. I thought it was an appendage growing out of his shoulder. But anyway, every single one of us has our own video camera with us all day long. When you're talking about introducing people to your organization, it does not have to be a Hollywood blockbuster. As a matter of fact, the more real the video is, the better, the more it counts. So are you doing a day in the life, walking through the plant? Are you interviewing your employees? And by the way, if you are using video, see how that woman is holding the phone? Don't hold it like that. You actually hold it horizontally. That way you're getting the best video. So little video tip for you there as well. Here are some of the ways that you can use video. One of my clients did what they called a Friday Strong, where they had different departments every Friday record a little motivational YouTube video as far as what they did. And some of them just did 2 or 3 minutes of them just talking, kind of boring, but it was what they wanted. And some departments really got into it. It allowed for some creativity. It's a video handshake when you have a new employee joining. Why not have a little 60-second video in your email signature that tells a little bit about you? That way that new employee comes in and they have kind of a feeling for who they're working with and a little bit about their personality. A day in the life. What does it look? They have those little speeded up videos that you can make those special effects and just kind of look for what is it like to work for your organization. Because that way what you're doing is you're also, before employees come in the door, they know what you're offering. They know what they're getting into. My favorite comment was one person at one of my seminars said, well, Lisa, if we show people what they would be getting into before they started with us, they'd never start work. That's a problem, and that's probably why you have the turnover that you do. So video, you can use it in whatever creative ways that you want, but again, we're looking at the technology that's out there and a fun way to introduce people to your organization that connects them. The second step, the H, is to help your employees to get better, to give them the tools to do their job that they need to do every single day. Now, I was speaking at one conference, and I asked the question. I said, what do you guys do to invest in your employees? And one woman raised her hand, and she said, we give every employee $1,500 a year to invest in whatever personal or professional development they want. You could almost see the heads of the accounting managers exploding, as they're doing that. What do you mean? We have 500 employees. We don't have that kind of money. And I asked her, how many of your employees, or what percentage of your employees actually take advantage of that? She said 3 to 5%. Think about that, 3 to 5%. You're offering a benefit to all of your employees, and only a small percentage of them will actually take you up on it. So it looks like you're doing good for the whole grand picture, but when it comes to the money that you're spending, it's a very small percentage. And the cool thing about that is that those are your future leaders. Those are like the marshmallows in your hot chocolate. They're rising to the top. I was actually doing a training program yesterday, and one of the guys there, he worked at a steel mill, and he'd been with the company for 3 months. And his boss was sending him to this series of programs. You should have seen, this kid lit up when he was talking about the investment that his company was making in him after just 3 months. And he just wanted to learn everything, and he was so excited. And I just see such potential in him. And I was so proud to see that his boss saw the potential in him to send him to this program. When you offer to help your employees to become better tomorrow than they are today, you're giving them the tools they need to be your future leaders. Some of the other opportunities that you have, lunch and learns. You can either bring in a DVD, put in a DVD, have people buy some sandwiches, have people have a conversation. You can bring in a trainer. That's a shameless plug, just in case. But we have different ways where you have people gathered, breaking bread, and having the same conversation. To have a learning library, to have resources available, and also train your employees how to use them. Instead of just handing them a book and saying, here, study this, which they'll never open the book, of saying, you know what, I found this really great chapter on employee engagement. Why don't you read this chapter and bring some ideas back that you can share with the group to the next meeting? Because now you're empowering employees, you're letting them have their creativity, and as they teach, they learn. Toastmasters, if you want your employees to be better at public speaking, there's Toastmasters Club, toastmasters.org. It's a public speaking club that you can either do in-house or encourage your employees to go to. Ongoing training in-house. I'm sure that maybe you have an HR department or training department that can do that, but there's also bringing in a trainer. They're sending them to public seminars, to going to trade shows. Again, I speak at a lot of trade shows, and I love walking through the trade shows. Number one, it's just super cool to be there. But number two, when you invest in your employees to send them to a trade show, number one, they feel like, ooh, I am all that because my boss invested in me to send me to this. But they're seeing the competition, what else is out there. They're talking to the customers, and they're getting ideas as far as how their products are used. So they're seeing a much better picture, much bigger picture by being exposed to the industry. So we talked about trust. We talked about helping your employees. Then my favorite step, of course, is the A step, or the AAA step of acknowledge, applaud, and appreciate. There was one study that showed that 21% of the respondents have never been recognized at work, never been recognized at work. And 33% of those same respondents had not been recognized for 6 months. I don't care who you are or what you do, that is way too long to go without acknowledging the good work that your employees do. We look for ways what gets recognized not only gets repeated, but it gets results. One of my favorite studies when it comes to positivity, Marcial Losada did a study where he looked at teams and he looked at their interactions. And what he found on a high-performing team is a 6-to-1 positivity ratio. What that means is for every one negative comment, people on a high-performing team they hear at least 6 positives. And this isn't always, oh, yay, everything you do is so good. This is, you know what, that's a really good start to an idea. Let's see how we can build on that. It's respectful communication. On an average performing team, that number drops in half. 3 positives for every 1 negative. At 3-to-1 positivity, that is barely surviving. Your employees are rowing the boat just fast enough to keep it afloat. Okay? They're doing just as much work as they're getting paid to do. But on a low-performing team, that is, again, it drops again, and it's the opposite. For every 1 positive, they hear 3 negatives. So the ratio is 0.3 to 1. 3 negatives, 1 positive. It's almost like that poster, that some of you may have seen back in the day that said the beatings will continue till morale improves. That's not how it works. We don't try to fix what's broken. That is almost like when you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. For every 1 person that smiles and waves and lets you in, there's 3 people honking the horn and screaming obscenities. Is that what you want your workplace to be like? We want to strive. Now, you may not go to 6-to-1 overnight, but you can certainly do better and starting to catch your employees doing things right. Because, again, we're going to look at those Gallup numbers. That's 30% who's engaged. We have 50% who are barely engaged or disengaged. And then we have that 20% of the horrible, toxic, actively disengaged. But when we think about who gets the attention, you have your rock stars, the top 30%, and you have your problem children, the bottom 20%. But you have a whole 50% of employees. I like to refer to them as Steady Eddie. Okay, Eddie does their job. They're not a rock star. They're not a problem child. They just show up and do their work. What if you went up to Eddie and said, you know what, I just really appreciate the fact that you're here. Thank you. I can count on you. You may be the first manager in Eddie's whole life that acknowledged their efforts. And Eddie will be saying, that felt pretty good. How to get some more of that recognition? And now you're giving Eddie the tools that they need to become a rock star. Because if you think about it on the other side of the equation, where do the bottom 20% to get their recruits from? It's going to be that middle 50%. Those are the people that you have control over. Those are the people where you can make that impact. So we built trust. We helped our employees. We acknowledged them. Now we want to navigate that work-life integration. And that is not coming down to happy, happy, joy, joy all the time. Work is always fun. No, it's not. But what we look for ways is to build relationships in ways that create accountability and get the job done. And that can be nurturing those friendships, nurturing those relationships. I had one of my manufacturing companies that they had a day where they had bring your family to work day. And the managers ran the machines. Now, I have to say that they admitted not a whole lot of production got done that day. But as the team leads, as the workers are taking their plant through the factory to show them, this is where I work, this is what I do, there was a sense of pride that they were able to show and communicate to their families. My husband's company does a company picnic every year. They've been doing that for as long as the company's been in business at Cedar Point, roller coaster capital of the world. but you get to see people's kids grow up, and you know them personally. And the kids know that they're going to Cedar Point, so if mommy or daddy want to quit, that can be a problem in their book. We build and we nurture those relationships. Then we get to know. The K is to know your people. There are all kinds of things. You can do personality assessments. I happen to be certified in DISC because that's the one that I prefer. But here's a writer-downer for you where it says that all about me sheet. That is something that you can easily create on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, however you want, but you ask your employees, what's your favorite $5 gift card? What's your favorite hobby? What's your favorite candy bar? What's your favorite, whatever it is that works for your employees, because now you can acknowledge them personally. There is no one size fits all. You think about it, some companies will say, I know, we're going to give out gift cards. So we're going to go to Starbucks and we're going to buy a couple $100 worth of $10 gift cards so our employees can buy half a cup of coffee. And then you give a gift card to Joe, and Joe's like, what am I going to do with this? I don't like Starbucks. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts coffee guy. And then you give one to Jane, and Jane's like, I don't drink coffee. What am I going to do with this? And finally you give one to Bill, and Bill's like, woohoo, Starbucks. You've made one person out of 3 happy with just a little bit of customization and catching people doing things well in the moment. That's what creates those connections. Stupid things. What's your favorite candy bar? Mine is a Heath bar, just in case you know. If somebody gives me a Reese cup, I'm good with that. Reese's a good company, a good candy bar. But if somebody gives me a Heath, they are paying attention. That's the little things that we want our employees to know, that they are valuable. We also get to know them through the different generations and how they work together in the workplace. We're going to do this really quickly. I'll probably expand on it a little bit more in my session in May. Traditionalists, they're born before 1945. Not seeing a whole lot of traditionalists up, but a lot of your owners of the organizations and your gals that have been there forever, they may fall into that. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. Gen X is 1965 to 1980. Millennials, 1981 to 2000. Sometimes you'll see it at 1996. And then Gen Z, either 1996 or 2000. But when you look at the ways that they are wired for things like the family structure, traditionalists had a very traditional family structure. Husband worked, wife stayed home, raised kids. Boomers came into the workplace. They put all of their time and effort and money into corporate and climbed that corporate ladder, and they started destroying their marriages. That's when we started seeing 50% of marriages ending in divorce. Gen X came in. Their family structure was single-parent households. So even the family unit, the levels of education, millennials are coming out with tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. Gen Z is thinking, maybe I don't need to come in with that. So the focus on education is different. Work ethic, and I put that in quotes because when you look at the actual work ethic, I hear this all the time. Well, millennials, they have no work ethic. Gen Z has no work ethic. Yes, they do. They have just as good of a work ethic as boomers. It's just different because of technology, because they are able to work from home. They're able to answer their emails. They're able to do so much from home that boomers and generations before them did not have the same access. Preferred leadership style. We went from extremely autocratic with traditionalists and baby boomers to now more of an open, flat, open-door organization. Communication preferences. Think about the changes in that. Holy cow. We went from in-person meetings with the traditionalists and letters, remember those, written on typewriters for goodness sake, and now we have, now we went all the way to text and social media. So we have live and in-person, we have phone, we have fax, we have email, we have text, we have messages, we have FaceTime, we have social media. So the whole gamut of communication preferences has changed. Feedback. It's more than once a year doing a personal performance review that the boomers were used to. Now, because millennials have been getting so much feedback their entire life, they're expecting that in the workplace. So it's something that they want to hear from you, not once a year, maybe once a month, 5 minutes, check in, let them know how they're doing. How can I help you? That work-life integration, the difference in technology. And I remember back in the day, if I wanted to go to the airport, I used to schedule a cab. Now I can see exactly where my Uber or Lyft driver is and have them pick me up within 3 minutes. We live in a gig economy, and that's how we start to think. And our expectations in the workplace are also different based on the year that we were born. So in our time together, we looked at building that trust, helping employees, acknowledging, applauding, and appreciating their efforts, navigating work-life integration, and getting to know people. I will be sharing this. I'm really excited to see you guys in Asheville. My program is on May 2nd in the beautiful Smoky Mountains. And the very last step of the thanks process is to serve a greater mission. How is your organization making a difference? Not just in the parts you make, not in the services that you offer. How are you making a difference to the greater good? When you can offer things like time off or volunteer work or helping your employees get involved, there's research that also goes along with that. So the 6 steps we talked about, when you build that trust, you inspire people to perform better. When you help them to be better tomorrow than they are today by investing in them, you help them to be more engaged and connected to the organization. When you applaud, appreciate, and acknowledge their efforts, they are proud to work for you. When you find ways to navigate that work-life integration, you're going to reduce stress, both yours and theirs. When you get to know people as individuals, they feel important. And when they know that they are serving a greater mission, they feel included. When you implement the thanks process, but again, remember, we're not implementing 22 steps gleaned from our hour together. What we're looking for is 1 or 2 things that you're committing to do over the long term to build those relationships, but that is how you keep your top talent from becoming someone else's. I'm going to put my contact information up here. Again, I will see you in Asheville, but we'll also open up the chat if there are any questions. And just so you know, any question is on the table. I will answer whatever you put out there. So let me know, and we will be monitoring it. Other than that, it has been my absolute pleasure to be with you today. And please, 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 if you are on this webinar and you're coming to Asheville, make sure you stop and say hi.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right.
It looks like we do have a quick question here. How about recognizing employees in newsletters, effective or impersonal?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely effective. People want to see their names in print. As a matter of fact, you know, all the company stuff, the new product, we're doing this and stuff, people are going to breeze over that. But if you're acknowledging people in the newsletter, they're going to go right for that column, whatever column, you know, the month that was. When I used to do a newsletter for one of my businesses, I called it the month that was. And I acknowledged customers in that, and they went and they looked for it. But you can do the same thing, very effective. Even more effective is also having peer-to-peer recognition, where you allow your employees to contribute how they were helped by others and get those kudos in the newsletter. Let's see. Cindy said, can we get a copy of your talking points from the webinar? The webinar, I believe, is going to be copied as well. And I am also fine if you want to share the slides too. I'm good with that.
Sure. Yes, and we have recorded this webinar. We will post it to the CSIA website within 30 days or less. But Lisa, as you said, you're okay with sharing the slides, so that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Cindy, I will send you a PDF copy of the slides. Let me just make a note of that. And if anybody else wanted a PDF copy of the slides, please reach out to me. This is Holly. My email address is hlundgren, LUNDGREN, @staff.controlsys, that's controlsys.org.
You know what, and also too, my email is on there, and I can send it to you as well, Holly. But I did make up a takeaway sheet, so with the thanks process and with some of the ideas. So I will send that to you later this afternoon. So you'll be able. That's a PDF that you can also share. I see Raphael asked, how often is it considered good to have company outdoor activities and friendly meetups per year for the company size of 15 to 20 people? You know what, that really depends really on your employees, on your culture. My husband's company, but they have 800 people that work there. They have a rib burn off in the springtime. They do the company picnic in the summer, and then St. Patrick's Day they bring in corned beef and cabbage for the shop. So there are things that you can do internally just based on the things that your employees like to do. There's outdoor activity, or there's activities of just going to maybe, doing paintball or doing bowling or some kind of activity that gets them together. My encouragement is the first time that you do it, if you don't have a really great response, because I've had people say, well, I'm not going to go unless they pay me to show up. You just keep doing it. You keep offering it. And you ask employees, what would you like to do? And get their feedback. So it's not just management coming in and saying, this is what we're doing, and it's all about, what they want. I hope that helps. But there's, outdoor activities, friendly meetups. 15 to 20 people, you can do quite a bit. Let's see. To request the presentation, that's on that last slide, but my email address and Holly's too. Mine is Lisa@Gradigy. But Holly, if you want to give yours again, that would be great.
Sure, I'm happy to share it. Although I will go ahead and send this to everyone who participated today, so you don't necessarily have to request it directly from me. But if you have any questions for me, my email is hlundgren, LUNDGREN, @staff, STAFF, .controlsys.org.
All right. Well, for all the people that said thanks, you're very welcome.
All right. Any last thoughts, Lisa? So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you have any last thoughts to share, please feel free. Otherwise, I'll close this out. Everything that we just talked about today starts with you. So even if you don't walk out with employee engagement, but you say, you know what, I need to thank more people, I'm going to change the language and start saying you're welcome, I'm going to have a gratitude practice. Just pick one thing that starts to change your perspective first, and then look at one way that you can integrate that into the workplace. And I promise you that that's going to make a huge difference over time. You'll see it. Thank you so much. On behalf of CSIA, I want to thank you for this discussion and all of you for attending too. We hope you found this webinar informational. When you close out of the webinar, a link will pop up to a brief evaluation. We would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to just share some feedback with us. And I want to go ahead and remind you that a recording of this webinar will be available on the CSIA website within about 30 days or less of this event. You can also visit the website to view recordings of any past webinars you might have missed. And as I stated before, I'll go ahead and send an email to everyone that participated today with some of that follow-up information that we talked about. This concludes our program for today. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.